This is the Brisbane Lions Fancast with Dom Fay and Michael Whiting.
Yes, we are pretty stoked to be sitting here, Mike, for the first time this year with a very, very good win. Obviously, St Kilda was good, but I think Carlton, long weekend, highlight of the season so far.
Put a smile on everyone's face, hasn't it? Getting a win at the Gabba and a comeback win at that. It sort of all looked a bit lost there halfway through the last quarter, but they kept fighting away and kicked the last 4 goals and got the win. So terrific victory and so many good things for us to go over today.
Yeah, I think pretty much from the moment that we saw Merritt kick that incredible goal in the first quarter, you felt like you were in for a pretty good day as a Lions fan, and that is how it turned out. There has been, and I'd like to just touch this right off the top, a fair bit of talk in the media and amongst Carlton fans that the umpiring got us over the line. I have to say, as a Lions fan there, up till three-quarter time, I thought we actually were getting a bit hard done by the umpiring. And I think that, we say this every time that the Lions fans blame umpires too. They don't influence the contest in the end. So.
No, exactly. And the old we was robbed sort of line doesn't sort of carry much weight, does it? But
not at all.
I think the free kick count was 24-17 to Carlton. And I hate going over umpiring decisions. Yeah. But, I mean, Brisbane, may have got a couple of lucky ones in the last quarter, but what's to stop us going back and looking at incidents in the first quarter and the second quarter, and where do you draw the line? So Brisbane, the bottom line is, and Mick Malthouse said it after the match, is that Brisbane were harder for longer. That's the end of the story. So well-deserved victory.
Absolutely. So hopefully we can leave the umpiring thing there and not touch that again, because there was so much to like about the Lions on Saturday. Now, if we went through individual players, which we probably will briefly, but if we did it with any justice, we'd probably be here for an hour going through each of them.
It's nice for us to have too many players to pick from, isn't it?
Yeah.
The first sort of 10 weeks of the season, we've been clutching at straws in a number of matches there, but you're right, there was so many great individual performances, and I actually haven't seen a replay of the game yet, which I'm still busting to do, but to have a closer look at it, because it's such a different perspective when you're at the ground and you're in a box sort of 100 metres away from action on the far side of the field. So I can't wait to have a look at the in-tight stuff, but so many good performances from Lions players.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 players in particular I'd like to touch on, and this isn't excluding the others. This is just 3 in particular who impressed me. And I do think it was a game that was orchestrated really by the return to form of senior players. Now, players like Daniel Merritt, who, started up forward, did very well in the first quarter there, had to go down back briefly, and then had to shoulder the load in the ruck with Trent West going down as a full-time ruck, and he's barely a part-time ruck, Daniel Merritt, but he did that very well, and I thought he was absolutely outstanding on Saturday.
Yeah, he was. He was thrown in the deep end a bit, wasn't he? Probably thought he was going to ruck 5 minutes a quarter, and he's had to do it for 2.5 quarters, basically full-time, so he had to battle away. I thought Robbie Warnock was probably Carlton's best player, but he should have been. He was half a foot taller than Dan Merritt and with a lot more rucking experience. But Merritt just provided, we hear that term, providing a great contest, but he did that, and the Lions midfielders were able to at least cut even in the middle of the ground, which didn't always look like it was going to happen there at stages. But Dan Merritt, I guess, thrown into unfamiliar territory, did a terrific job.
See, I'm not sure I've always, because I've read it in a few places about the talk about Warnock's good game, but I would have thought for a ruckman like him, I mean, he's not one of the competition's elite ruckmen, but he's relatively well regarded by a number of particularly Carlton fans. And I would have expected when you come up against Daniel Merritt, you would think, a part-time ruck like that you would be dominating the clearances probably more than you did. So as much as he did win the hitouts, the fact that the clearances stayed relatively even, I think maybe Warnock could have done a bit better.
Yeah, well, I do want to go back and watch the match, but I haven't got that luxury before we've gone on this show. But I think that's more credit to Brisbane's midfielders. Obviously, they knew they were going to lose the hitouts. You can start roving to Robbie Warnock's tap-outs. I can remember a number of instances where Warnock hit it down the throat. I think Jeff Garlett kicked the goal directly from a hit out in the forward 50. I think there was instances where Warnock's influence was substantial, but as the match wore on, and probably particularly in that last quarter, Brisbane were able to get on top around the stoppages. Now, whether that's Warnock not hitting it to advantage or whatnot, I'm not 100% sure. But Justin Lepich said after the match that he thought Warnock was very influential, and he really praised the Lions defenders for being able to clog up the advantage, particularly in those second and third quarters when Carlton had such dominance in most facets of the game. He really praised the defensive end for being able to, I guess, hold the fort.
Yeah, well, the second player I do want to touch on, and there's been, so much said about this guy. I don't know how many more words you can say, but Tom Rockcliffe, again, stood up when needed. That last quarter from Rockcliffe was just outstanding. I have watched a replay back. Now, I noticed it at the game, but it was so much more clear watching it back on TV just how instrumental Rocky was in getting us over the line, as he has been so many other times. And I think he's the kind of player who you sit back and you're very grateful that he's a Lions player, Tom Rockcliffe.
Yeah, I think everyone would want someone like him on their team.
Yeah.
He's a real, he's a bit of an agitator. He likes getting under other opposition players' skins. But not only that, but he just he leads by example. He never ever gives up. We've mentioned it in previous shows when the Lions have lost by 100 points against Port Adelaide or 80 points against the Swans or whoever. But Rockcliffe's a player that never ever drops his standard. He's always battling right till the end. I think the stats were 13 touches and 6 clearances in the last quarter, which are just Superman type of numbers in a close contest. So heaps of credit to Rocky, and he just keeps producing. And I had some good Twitter debate with some fans on Monday about his exact influence and where he ranked, and it was unanimous from the punters that he was the best player on the ground. So, which I wasn't sure at when I left the ground. Like I said, just that different perspective of seeing it live versus the in-tight stuff, which he does so well.
Yeah, you notice that a lot more close up on TV, I think. But he was definitely great. And the last of the 3 players who I think needs a mention is Joel Patfull, who
Let's claim it, Dom.
Yeah.
It was a coincidence that he came on our show last week and then had his best game of the season.
Yeah, look, we inspired him.
Probably was, but...
Yeah, look,
I agree. He was great. He was awesome.
You could see pretty much from the first quarter. I think there was a moment about 10 minutes in that he took a great mark in defence, and you just thought, well, that's the Patfull who's 1-2 best and fairest, isn't it?
That's the guy we talked about last week that was going for his grabs. So.
Yeah, exactly, and he was back all throughout the match. There were a number of instrumental marks that he took, and he was just absolutely back to his best. And suddenly you watch that and you're like, well, if he plays like this all year again, you'd think he would win another best and fairest.
That's right, and that is the guy that plays on the talls and the smalls. We saw him playing on Troy Menzel, and we saw him playing on a number of their talls. So he was great, but it was that it wasn't the attacking instinct, but the going for his marks and being aggressive that we talked about with him on the show last week that he did so well, and that was the best of Joel Patfull. Clearly his best game of the season, and very closely alongside shutting down Nick Riewoldt in the other victory. So I guess you can see from that when Patfull plays well, Brisbane have a much better chance of winning.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Absolutely. Now, there's a number of players I didn't get to who were outstanding. Redden, Adcock, a bunch of others.
I'll go
really
on. I thought Jack Redden was right up there for me in the particularly those second and third quarters when Brisbane was being thoroughly outplayed. I thought Redden did a terrific job in holding the fort, and I think he ended up with 10 clearances and a whole heap of possessions, maybe 28 or 30, kicked a goal. So I thought he was right in that upper echelon that you spoke about as well.
Absolutely, and as I said, I think Adcock was very good from defence. When we play well again, Adcock's another one who's very instrumental to that.
You mentioned it just at the start there, Dom, but just the experienced guys and the leaders stepping up. They're all the names we want to hear every week, with just the occasional Louis Taylor, James Aish, these sort of guys, instead of the other way around.
I think the first 9 rounds, it was all the positives were, well, Aish played well, Taylor played well, but now suddenly they're filling the position that first-year players should be filling, which is having the occasional highlights and helping out overall, but, the senior players are the ones who set the standard. So it was great to see that standard back. A question I do want to ask you, though, is do you think it was just the break that brought the senior players back into form? Do you have any idea of what may have caused such a form reversal from the North Melbourne game? Obviously, there were injuries and illness there, but from that to our best performance of the year, do you know what may have caused it?
Yeah, well, it may have had something to do with it, but also the fact that they went into the game thinking they could win. Whereas I think at the start of the season, you're always optimistic, but after 4 or 5 weeks, when Brisbane had such a terrible start and Rich was already injured for the season, Leuenberg was already injured for long term, there was no sign of Staker coming back, no sign of McGrath. You can talk about having your spirits up and it not affecting you all you like, but I'm sure some of those players were going into round 6 and round 7 against Sydney, or a couple of those subsequent matches, the North Melbourne one, which obviously with an asterisk next to it with the illness. But I'm sure you're going into some of those matches thinking, God, no matter how good we play here, it's going to be very difficult to win. But they came out after this bye and they'd spoken about it the previous week or two. This is a group of matches we can win. So you go out against Carlton, knowing that you can win. They'll go out with the same attitude against the Western Bulldogs this week, the same attitude against the Greater Western Sydney Giants the following week. So I think that helps, but probably the rest as well. It gives you time to mentally recharge the batteries, because I don't think physically is too much of an issue for those guys at this stage of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could just see mentally we were so much fresher than Carlton in that first quarter, and it probably was the difference in the end, that first quarter, that we got over them. We will touch a bit more on this at the end of the show, but Western Bulldogs this weekend, as you touched on, it's another winnable game, of a run of winnable games for us. Do you think we're a genuine chance of causing? Well, I think it would still be an upset down in Melbourne.
I think we'd still be slight underdogs. The Bulldogs will be looking at this the same way, won't they? They'll be looking at this going, "Phew, we've got the Lions. We've at least got a chance to win this one." They've really struggled, and they've played very good football, but they can't score once it's in the forward 50. Their play until it gets to the forward 50 has been very good, but they can't capitalise. So I'm sure they see it as an opportunity as well. But I guess the only thing we've got to see from Brisbane is see them do it 2 weeks in a row, which we haven't seen to any extent this season at all, except for maybe the first 2 weeks. But
if you remember the St Kilda game, I think the one right after that was Sydney, which was one of our worst performances.
Exactly, and then they played well against Essendon and fell off against North Melbourne, which had circumstances around it. But the big challenge will be to do it 2 weeks in a row, and if they produce the same level, I think Brisbane can win it. I think there's enough. We've seen now that there's enough scoring in them that they can win. Those midfielders, I thought Zorko was one we didn't touch on, was very good on the weekend. He was able to run and break lines, and we've seen enough scoring ability in this team now that I think they can beat the Western Bulldogs, but it will be very difficult.
Yeah, and just as you mentioned Zorko, I feel like it would be wrong not to also mention Josh Green's game on Saturday. Again, as I said, we could go through all players.
No, we're making our way, and there's one more. I've got one more,
okay.
Justin Clark, who I think's
absolutely
he's in all respects to Justin's had a terrible start of the season, particularly his first 5 or 6 weeks. He looked a distance away from the young key defender we saw last year, but he slowly turned his form around, and on the weekend he was terrific. He had Jared Waite for most of the match and kept him right out of it, so terrific game from him. So I think we've covered we've covered a few players here, haven't we?
There's a few who we still could go and touch on, but I think it was just a great team performance in the end, led by the leaders, and that's what set the tone. After this, though, we will be chatting to the person who did put the Lions ahead with his goal in his first game on the weekend. It is Zach O'Brien. He's joining us on the Fancast after this.
The best way to keep track of everything Lions is to head to lions.com.au. It's the first place to find the latest Lions news and videos, get the lowdown on upcoming games, results and player stats. There's also great ways to interact with live chats, downloads and Player of the Year voting updates. And with a social media hub, you can connect with all the Lions social media activity. lions.com.au. Everything Lions, all in one place.
Joining us on the Fancast this week, he was the first game hero on the weekend, kicking the goal that put us ahead. And he's joining us from the massage table at the moment, I believe. It's Zach O'Brien. Welcome to the show, Zach.
Thank you, Dom. How you going?
Yeah, pretty good. So have you come down from the buzz of the weekend yet?
Yeah, come down pretty quick, mate. After Sunday's recovery, it was all business as usual. Looking forward to trying to get another win against the Bulldogs.
Well, we're going to take you back to that night, and we want to hear a little bit about it, Zach. So can you tell us, I guess, firstly, you've been elevated and put into the team. Can you tell us what that was like, I guess, first of all?
Yeah, it was really good, mate. On Thursday morning, come in after the day off on Wednesday, and Justin asked me to come into his office, and he just said, "Look, mate, you've been going well, and we're going to give you a chance to play, and this weekend, and you're probably likely to start a sub, and just come on and give us some run, and do your best." So that was how it started, and then it went from there.
Now, there's a lot of people who probably wouldn't be familiar with your journey to even get to the club. Obviously, it hasn't been the conventional drafted at 18 type journey. What has the past few years been like for you? How have you gotten to this stage?
The last couple of years have been different. I mean, I didn't play TAC Cup or state level footy as a junior. I just played local footy, so played at Wang Rovers and then switched over to Yarrawonga in the Ovens and Murray League back in country Victoria. So played there and then moved. I've been in Melbourne for 5 years before this, and moved in the last 2 years and played at Aberfeldy, a local Essendon Football League club, and then in that last year played at Essendon VFL as well. So I think I played 13 games at Essendon last year in the VFL and just got picked up from there.
So when did it become realistic that playing in the AFL could be an option for you, Zach?
Probably when I got drafted. I had a couple of meetings with a few clubs, but you don't really take anything for granted with that. It was more when my name was read out on the rookie draft day.
So with such, I suppose, a shock then to be playing AFL now, was it an amazing experience and was it even a partially emotional experience when Justin told you were going to make your debut?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a lot of hard work goes into it. Pre-season and not only that, over the last couple of years trying to get somewhere where you're looking at getting drafted, let alone getting drafted. So, yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster, I guess, the whole system. But, once I was told that I was playing first game, it was sort of, it was great. It was, a lot of happiness and, a lot of relief, I guess, because you always get anxious whether they're going to play a game or whether you're just going to go through the motions and play the nation for the whole year. So,
mate, and being sub must be so different as well, because if you run out, you know what you're doing from the start of the game. But being a sub, you never know when you're going to come on. And of course, you had to come on during the second quarter when Trent West went down. So what was that like? Probably getting extra time than you thought you may have originally.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, bad luck for Westy, but just at a point where you got to try and keep warm and you're sitting down a lot, and then when Westy come off, sort of have to be right to go straight away and get in there.
And then with a bit of ill discipline by Jared Waite, you were presented with the opportunity to kick the goal that put the club ahead, put the Lions ahead. Obviously, the Gabba was absolutely roaring at that stage. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I was nervous. I was just making sure I'd kick through it and kick straight so I didn't miss. That was a great feeling after it and put us in front. And then Greeny got another one after that, and I thought, we might be a chance to win this. So.
It must have been amazing, obviously, to complete the comeback. Sometimes those matches you sort of fight and just fall a bit short, but to come over the top and get a win in your first match, I guess you couldn't have scripted it any better.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, Carlton come back hard, which is even better. I mean, we held them down, and they got close, but they didn't score. So it was great.
Now, obviously, as you said, a year ago, you probably had no real clue you would be playing AFL this year, and now you find yourself up in Brisbane playing AFL. Have you settled into the city well and into the club well? Yeah,
the city's good. I mean, it's a lot less hectic than Melbourne, a lot less traffic. The weather's better. It's closer to the beach, so it's settled in well. Not too many complaints up here, mate.
But you'll be getting fingers crossed. We haven't been privy to Justin Leppich's selection yet, but you'll be getting a chance to go back to Melbourne this weekend. You're looking forward to going back down there and probably playing in front of some friends and family against the Doggies. Yeah,
it'd be great to catch up with some friends and family. I haven't been back down there for a while, so if I do get the opportunity, it'd be really good.
I'm just interested to know, what are your goals then for the rest of the season? I imagine obviously getting to the stage where you can be permanently elevated in the draft come November is the major goal, but what are your other goals throughout the year?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great from individually. Team-wise, it'd be good to win as many games as we can going to the end of the season and turn the season around. I think we've got a good draw coming up the next 6 games, so hopefully we can beat Bulldogs and try and beat GWS, and then it turns around the win-loss ratio. It looks a bit better. It's a lot more positive for the year. I think we're actually going okay. It's just that the win-loss ratio doesn't look that good at the moment.
Yeah, well, we were stoked to see you get your chance on the weekend, and we hope to see you in Lions colours for many, many years to come. Thanks for joining us on the Fancast today, Zach.
Thanks a lot, Dom. Thanks, Mike.
This weekend, the Lions reserves play Redland. It's at Cooperoo at 1:30 on Saturday afternoon. And the seniors are down in Melbourne for what is a rare Saturday night game in Melbourne. Often you get the afternoon games down there against the Western Bulldogs at Etihad Stadium. It's the 7:40pm game there, Mike. And as we've touched on throughout the show earlier on, this is a genuine chance for the Lions. Obviously, the number one question, though, is who is going to replace Trent West.
It's terrible to see Trent West go down last weekend, wasn't it? He follows Matthew Lornberger, who's also got a long-term injury, and he's still 6 or 8 weeks away. So there's 2 options, which is well-documented, Stephen Martin, or the possibility of elevating young Archie Smith, who we know has come from basketball, and he's been playing the game for 12 months. So Justin Leppich was hedging his bets, or he has been hedging his bets so far, but I think he'll go the safe option and go with Stephen Martin, particularly as we've both spoken about off-air about you're playing Will Minson, who's if he's not the biggest ruckman, he's probably behind Sandilands. He'd be nearly the next biggest and broadest ruckman in the comp, I'd think. So it'd be pretty stiff, I think, putting Archie Smith as exciting as it would be to see him play. Do you think? Is that the way you see it as well?
It would be a challenge for Archie Smith. Now, I'm not saying he's not up to it, but I just think that at the moment his strength probably comes from his leap. And when it comes to the physical man-on-man kind of contests that happen with around-the-ground rucking, and in terms of any marking contests, anything like that, he may not be quite up to it yet against someone like Minson. But in saying that, if there's one thing that Leppich has shown in the first half of the year, it is that he has made some selections and thrown people in earlier than we would have expected. Lewis Taylor, no one really expected him to play round one. So it wouldn't shock me if Archie did get the run, but I feel like this could be the chance for Stephen Martin to really stake his claim as, well, this is why I should stay at the club.
Well, it is a good chance for him, isn't it? And Lepper loves Archie Smith. Like, his development's been through the roof this year and's probably blown most people away. But I think he'll lean on that side of caution. And you're exactly right. It's a great chance for Steph Martin. He's going to have a free run at it for the foreseeable future if he gets a chance, because Matthew Lornberg is still at least 6 weeks away. So he's going to get a good crack at it, and he's got a bit of physicality. He might be able to at least body up with Will Minson. The following week, the Lions play GWS, who have got Shane Mumford. So the size of the ruckman don't decrease in a real hurry. So great chance for Stephen Martin to show exactly why he's been brought to the club. He's had a shocking run with injuries, so fingers crossed if he gets a run, he can stay in one piece and do a great job.
And I think looking at his form when he was at the Demons, Stephen Martin's best football was played as a ruckman rather than a forward. So it would be really exciting to see what he could produce in that capacity. And I think at this stage you're pretty grateful you've got someone like him on the list, because our ruckmen are going down like flies right now.
It's a bit of a cursed position at the Lions, isn't it, the old ruckman? Going back for as far as you can remember, the ruckmen have all had major injuries at some stage of their careers.
Well, many would assume it's to do with the Gabba pitch and the lack of a drop in pitch, but that's a political issue that we'll
steer away from that. And that didn't hurt Trent West on the weekend.
Yeah. So, but a tip for you, Mike. Who are you thinking will get up, and by how much on Saturday
I'm
night?
scared of jinxing the Lions, actually, because I don't tip them very often, but I am tipping them this weekend. I think. I think from what we saw last weekend, the competitive, contested nature will be enough to match the Bulldogs, and I think Brisbane's got enough speed and enough, dare I say this word, class to score enough points and get a win. It'll be very, very close either way, but I think Brisbane might sneak over the line.
Yeah, I think Brisbane will win, and I actually think they might win relatively convincingly. I think this could be a 30-point-ish win, and I know that sounds ridiculous, seeing as I just had one good performance, but genuinely, I think it has, to me, shades of the Western Bulldogs match in 2012 where we went down there. Many predicted the Western Bulldogs would win. Even when we were ahead in the third quarter, people thought the Bulldogs will come back. But we'd shown a bit of form against West Coast just before that match. And I think that we could see a similar one this weekend. I think the Western Bulldogs are a bit ripe for the picking, and I think we're full of confidence.
We'll forget the 2013 result. So the Melbourne fans, forget that one.
I did omit that one for a reason, yes.
The Melbourne fans, they don't get many games, another political issue, but here's a chance. Get along and watch the boys. They've come off a win, and great chance to get out on a Saturday night and watch the Lions run around.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be back next week to review that game and look forward to another winnable one against GWS. For now, though, that's the Lions Fancast. See ya.